more productive from home.
Please, call me Brian. I can vacuum your dog.
That's great. But at CDW, we can...
J-Mike 1400.
All right, I don't want to do a Phil Donahue impersonation here, but can you help me out a little bit here today because I'm having a little trouble. The trouble I'm having is Megan Rapinoe. Now, I thought for sure that her 15 minutes of fame as a soccer player were over. You know Megan, right? She's got she's a gay person and she's got weird looking hair and all that sort of stuff. And she was always in Donald Trump's face, or, you know, she was always standing up to Trump. I never knew what that meant. Well, how ordinary people, you know, who were barely hanging on to a job somewhere at Walmart were standing up to Donald Trump. I knew Donald Trump didn't care if they existed or not. But Megan Rapinoe was one of those people who always wanted us to know that she was standing up to Donald Trump. Well, Draymond Green, who is a great basketball player and a personal favorite of mine because he just doesn't care what he says. He just doesn't care, and that's the way Americans used to be. They didn't so carefully watch their language. That's been a cultural change that the left takes credit for. Oh, aren't we cute? We've got everybody to talk our way. And if we can get them to talk our way, then they'll start thinking our way. And once that happens, they're nothing more than sheep. So don't be a sheep. Take that message with you today. Just don't be a sheep. Okay? Don't use that nuanced language. Who are you, Bill Clinton? Anyway, Draymond Green said he was tired of female athletes complaining about pay disparities. By pay disparities, Draymond and people like him make a lot of money, a lot more money than Megan Rapinoe makes, kicking a ball around and standing up to Donald Trump and being a lesbian and dyeing her hair weird colors and all that sort of thing. Now, the reason Draymond makes so much more money is capitalism. More money, frankly, more money will be paid to male athletes because of their considerable athletic talent than to the Megan Rapinoes of the world and the women's soccer team, as proud as some people are of the women's soccer team. Personally, if it takes the U.S. women's soccer team losing so I can get rid of Megan Rapinoe and out of my face for a while, I'd be tempted to go in that direction. Not yet. I'm still a patriot, and I got to accept the fact that Megan Rapinoe represents our country. Not very well, of course. But Megan Rapinoe, in response to Draymond, and this was a quote that was on most television stations and in newspapers and magazines and that sort of thing. I don't usually use this sort of language on here, and I'm surprised it's acceptable that we do use it today. But, of course, Megan is entitled. She's a victim, woman, lesbian, and a few other things, I'm sure. Weird hair. There's three different ways that she's no doubt oppressed. Woman, lesbian, hair. Weird hair. Anyway, Megan Rapinoe showing us her character, tells us, and she addresses this to Draymond Green, you obviously kind of showed your whole ass in not even understanding what we all talk about all the time. You don't think we've asked for more funding? Megan, it's not funding. Women's soccer, in regard to the Olympics, is a good thing, but we're not going to pay a lot of money to see athletes that aren't maybe as entertaining as men, with the exception of the Fort Dodge girls softball team, of course. And I don't hear those lovely, young, very talented, competitive women running around with a platform barking like Megan Rapinoe. You know, I'd really like to hear from women if you would call in. And if you think I'm 100% wrong, I don't mind you saying that. Our community lost a great man just a short time ago in Ed O'Leary. Now, Ed O'Leary did not agree with me at all on practically anything, but I could talk with a lot about a lot of things with Ed, because he was at bottom a very, very decent man. And I was very saddened by his passing. So please call, if you will, 955-1400. Megan Rapinoe's problem is she seems to have a problem with capitalism. She seems to have a problem with the capitalist system. And in capitalism, whatever makes the most money, those people get rewarded the most. It's as simple as that. Whatever and I guess we're at fault, somehow morally deficient in Megan Rapinoe's eyes, because more of us don't watch her and others perform soccer. Now, I'd like to point out that Megan Rapinoe and her friends on the U.S. women's soccer team, the last I knew, were still training against high school boys soccer teams and sometimes getting beat by teenage boys soccer teams. You don't deserve a lot of money if you get beat by high school kids, okay? You don't. And what are you complaining about? I guess she's complaining because it gets her the attention. And let me just say about this entire movement. A lot of people compare it to the 60s and the Vietnam anti-war movement. Let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, I was there. I was kind of on the other side. I was a GI serving overseas. But I came home, and I still have a vivid memory of the period of being called a baby killer by some guy with long hair, and some pretty girls also with long hair and sandals that I really wanted to be friends with. But because I wore the uniform of my country, they practically spit on me. And by the way, we're all getting into old age now. Those of us who served and served proudly, and those who just stood on the sidelines and griped and marched in the streets and screamed and hollered about what an immoral war it was. Because I'll tell you, war is immoral. But it is necessary on occasion. In those sort of things, war is necessary, and the end result of war is beautiful. Ask Adolf Hitler, for example. But I digress. I'm digressing again. If any women have an opinion on Megan Rapinoe and her demands for more funding, and maybe I'm off base on this. Maybe I don't know all the information. I know the men's soccer team gets more Olympic funding than the women's team does. But I don't know how I don't know how that means that the two teams, the men's and women's soccer teams, are somehow equal and will make more money in the end. Television advertisers who have a lot to do with who's on the Olympics and who isn't, I'll tell you, they want teams out there that show us the best athletes in the world. And I don't think that's Megan Rapinoe, frankly. And, Draymond Green was right. We're all tired of this. We're all tired of these false and harsh accusations. Thank God the Des Moines City Council, with the exception of Josh Mandelbaum, of course, the Des Moines City Council finally decided to do something about the convenience store workers that kept showing up and interrupting the Des Moines City Council meeting. This, let me refer back to the protesters and those who served in the military back when I was a very young man, back to the late 60s and early 70s. Those demonstrations, those protests were led by students in some of the finest universities in this country. They were led by and inspired by academics and others who had an impressive career. These demonstrations are led by screaming, threatening, foul-mouthed radicals, in some cases, who didn't even finish high school. So I'm getting a little tired of it too. I mean, some of these poor people, and I know being a part of a group like that, and when you have a righteous cause, so you think, I know that's a powerful draw, because without that, what else would you do? Sit in your house and watch television all day? No, it's better to feel yourself a warrior on the front lines of some powerful movement. But actually, most of them are just being used. I've seen it at city council meetings, county board of supervisors meetings. Somebody will put things in some poor schmuck's mouth, and that poor schmuck will show up at the microphone, at a city council meeting, at a board of supervisors meeting, in the state legislature, everywhere. And they'll repeat these wild accusations, and then Des Moines Register or whatever print media out there will say that this person is a critic, or this is what somebody who is a part of this group says. This guy is a member of Black Lives Matter, so we must fall into hushed silence while he makes wild and hateful allegations, as has happened at Des Moines City Council meetings, and threatening accusations. Finally, and at last, the Des Moines City Council took action, and they started arresting people who tried to disrupt city council meetings. We haven't had the problem here in Fort Dodge of actual disruption, and I'm proud of our town for that. But it is time that we stood up for decency, for respect, and for fact. And the fact is, Megan Rapinoe and people like her are giving us a false narrative. The people that won't allow the Des Moines City Council to function are giving us a false narrative. Black Lives Matter protesters around the country are giving us a false narrative. The thugs, and that's all they are, the thugs who are still showing up in Portland, Oregon, are giving us a false narrative. Remember the Proud Boys, unarmed, shot dead? There seems to be a thing with left-wingers shooting people, and then there's some sort of great excuse for that. The guy that shot and killed this Proud Boy was 41 years old, and he had no record of achievement whatsoever. In fact, he had a criminal record. Police chased him down in Oregon, where he shot it out with him and was killed himself. But 2 or 3 days earlier, before the murder that he committed, he certainly could have been on CNN as a member of such and such group, yelling into the camera with great self-righteousness. No one likes to see these horrific murders. The 2 murders up in Kenosha, Wisconsin were horrific. But the 2 young men that were killed, one was a 36-year-old fast food worker. What the hell is that man doing out in the street, 10 o'clock at night, chasing down some armed kid? And by the way, what the hell was the kid doing there? I know. What kind of disturbed personality is his mother to drive him to Kenosha from Illinois and give him a semi-automatic weapon? That's crazy. But the fact of the matter is, the protesters, the other younger protester was a 26-year-old skateboarder with very questionable background, including some criminality. These are the type of people, not intellectuals, not the children of the middle class who are just trying to stay out of the draft. These are some very questionable individuals, and it's about time they stop showing up at our newspapers and on cable television news because they've got nothing to instruct us. They don't. They're just poor people and angry people. And I understand having been poor myself, I understand the anger that goes with it. But the solution is never to get out there with your skateboard and start beating up some kid with a gun. It's a bad idea. And we should look at who the protesters are and the allies of the Democratic Party before we give them any credence. 4 o'clock in the afternoon, KVFD, Fort Dodge, Iowa.
This is Gary Rima, the voice of the UNI Panthers, and you can listen to exciting Panther sports right here on the voice of Fort Dodge, AM 1400, KVFD.
A war of words over committee assignments. I'm Rich Dennison, Fox News. Republicans say they won't take part in a panel investigating the January 6th U.S. Capitol violence after Speaker Nancy Pelosi rejects 2 GOP appointments.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy lashed out at Speaker Pelosi's decision to reject 2 GOP picks for a select committee investigating the January 6th Capitol attack. In a statement, Pelosi raised